Uniform Show episode 21. This is our big final episode before we get to the NFL. So we're wrapping up the NBA playoffs, the finals, looking at some different NBA uniforms, and then what's taken place during the MLB season. With the NBA, the Indiana Pacers had, I'd say, the most unique sponsor of any uniform that I'm aware of on their jersey.
Yeah, I noticed this in the playoffs that they had a QR code, wasn't really paying close attention to their ad patch, and we really don't want to because we still don't like ad patches, but very interesting to see a QR code being used and just how many opportunities you'd get to scan that. Obviously, interviews during or after the game, but just a very interesting way of going about it. Wonder if more teams will do this and follow along.
I know people use QR codes, but I've never liked the look of QR codes. And to me, it's taken it too far by putting them on a uniform. And regardless of however you feel about its appearance, the question is, does it get the job done? And I really wonder about that too. I mean, how many opportunities are you really going to get for someone to try to scan that on their phone? I'd like to see it off the jersey going forward, but I'd be surprised it's worth the money for spoken note
Yeah.
to be on there.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with it.
Nope. Same here.
That's the Pacers. I know it's an unusual way to begin an episode. But to the NBA playoffs, where we had the Nuggets and the Timberwolves, here we see an excellent uniform choice and a terrible uniform choice.
We were really excited about the Timberwolves throwbacks from the first time we saw them this year, and especially that they're white being even more unique, not a color, and that they wore it at home, white at home, very traditional, and just a great design on top of it. And they just looked classy in so many cases this year, and especially in the playoffs, wearing them even more.
And what do you think about the Nuggets?
And then the Nuggets was the opposite. This jersey doesn't say Denver, it doesn't say Nuggets, just the altitude. And it's just a weak design, all black, like so many teams choose to do nowadays. This is the world champion defenders, and in our opinion, that's part of the reason why they didn't defend their championship, is because they were wearing these too much.
It's a very weak alternate uniform, and I have to say that for me, the throwback, the original Timberwolves uniform, especially looking at the jersey in the NBA, was one of the highlights of the regular season, and it was the highlight for uniforms. The very best part of uniforms, I would say, outside of, let's say, the Boston Celtics and their standard uniforms. This was the best part of the playoffs because it was a surprise.
Yeah.
Having these, and you just don't expect it in the playoffs.
Yeah, throwbacks have not been allowed in the playoffs. And us being Golden State Warriors fans, we were hoping that they might use their throwbacks in the championship season in 2022. They didn't, and I can't think of any other team that has, but the Timberwolves did. They got permission and it looked great.
And that was the good news for the Timberwolves in the playoffs, but there was also bad news for the Timberwolves. This is what they wore when they were eliminated by the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah.
This is what we remember and how they went out to end their season.
Yeah. They hadn't worn these once at all in the entire playoffs up to this point. This was the big elimination game, and when we saw them come out as the game was starting, we were just like, why? Why would you want to turn to these and go down with these? These were not going to help, in our opinion.
Yes, and these colors simply don't work. You're saying it's a dark color along with just the neon green color can go all together in sports. My mind's going to the Seahawks, of course.
And the Pelicans.
The Pelicans have a very similar one as well that we haven't looked at, but in both cases, get rid of them.
Yeah.
Then to the NBA Finals. Game 1 of the Finals, it was Dallas Mavericks at the Boston Celtics. The Celtics, not any surprise, they wore their traditional white uniforms. But the Mavericks came out wearing this in Game 1.
Yeah. And it was kind of the same reaction we had for the Timberwolves coming out in their Game 7, in their elimination game against the Mavericks. Just the worst uniform in their set on such a big stage and such a big game. And again, we believe that there's some intangible reason that they lost based on these uniforms. Their strongest is the blue with the white border, and I guess because of the way things were structured, with Boston having the first 2 games and then the Mavericks having the middle games, they wanted to make sure and wear these in case they didn't get a chance at home, maybe. But terrible contrast in uniforms with the Celtics classy white versus these.
Yeah, it wasn't just a matter of being outmatched with the talent on the court. It was with the uniforms.
Yeah.
In this series, with the Celtics and the Mavericks. And then we fast forward to the final game of the series where the Celtics won. And there you have it, the green. And you had to wait till Game 5 to actually get the green.
Yeah.
And for me, it was almost a uniform crime that we almost didn't see the green in this series. If the Celtics swept, we would not have seen it even once because they chose to wear black.
Yeah.
Black before green.
Right.
The Celtics.
Right. We were just saying to ourselves, yes, the priority was making sure they didn't miss out on wearing black.
Right.
Not green. And they must have had that in mind and been thinking that that was a possibility, and that's why they did what they did. And of course, the Mavericks were wearing black a lot too, so they wanted to contrast that, but still almost missing green.
It really makes you just about hit the roof if you're a fan of uniforms that we almost didn't see this.
Yeah.
But every team's got to get that black in. As you saw, the priority for the Mavericks in this series was wearing black.
Yeah.
And then the Celtics, it was more of a priority to wear black than green. But I'm glad they got it right at the end.
Yeah.
It wasn't too late. Kyrie Irving. And Kyrie Irving's shoes. This was actually throughout the playoffs.
Right.
This was throughout the playoffs. Kyrie Irving wore these shoes.
Right. Notice him going up for a layup, taking dynamic movements towards the basket, and trying to get a better look at what was moving around his shoes. And yeah, just would not have expected that a basketball player would have these type of shoes with something hanging off. And I guess it's a Velcro in the middle too. And not the team color, of course. Like we always say.
That's just about always the problem now. I mean, going back to the finals of the Warriors and Celtics, our complaint was Steph Curry and his purple shoes, not blue shoes, his purple shoes.
Yeah.
And Kyrie Irving here has gone with another color that's not a team color, and they are the moccasins. These are really the moccasin look. And yeah, and you could put aside your feelings of how they appear, but wouldn't you find that annoying? It's one thing to walk, but when you're running in a sport, you're running and jumping, and then you're feeling that on your foot. Never would have imagined that.
Yeah. Haven't seen anything like it. I wonder if anybody else has ever worn anything like that. Probably not.
And just looking at Kyrie Irving too, here's something we haven't ever comment on in the NBA. We have our feelings about the tights. We would like to see the tights go altogether. That's a losing battle. But what about the knee pads?
Yeah, knee pads create an extra bulge, and players in the past never had them, and
never needed them.
Yeah.
But now they need tights and they need knee pads.
Getting closer to football in ways.
After the season ended, shortly after the NBA season ended, we had a pleasant surprise that the Utah Jazz released these new uniforms for next season. So what we have here is two different purple uniforms on the ends, and then you have a white uniform. Again, you tell me which one's home and which one's road. I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah.
Your guess is as good as mine. And then the black alternate. Your thoughts?
Yeah, just first of all, when I saw this set, not a single one says Jazz on it. And they're trying to imitate the 90s design that said Jazz. One of them should say Jazz on it. And the letters and the word Utah just doesn't look as attractive in that style and font as Jazz does. I mean, it's an improvement over what they've had, but not to have Jazz on one. And then the two purple ones are so similar. The style, the circular neck on the right versus more pointed on the left. But still, you would think that one of these would be replaced at some point because they're so similar. Having the true throwback would have been better, and to the 90s, or the one that they had more recently, 80s one, I believe, 70s one. They're just all a little too similar.
Agree that I'm surprised that they don't have Jazz on any of these uniforms, and you're the one to point out to me. I was personally excited to see something like this again with the mountains on it. My first choice would have been to say, well, just use the 90s ones again.
Yeah.
But teams don't like doing that because then they can always go back and use it as a throwback or turnback uniform. But almost anything, is an improvement over what they had.
Yeah.
I prefer the rounded neck over the pointed neck that you have on the far right. This is a big improvement for me. I'm just thinking about when we saw the Clippers uniforms.
Yeah.
That I was underwhelmed by. These are definitely a big leap forward, a major improvement. I mean, they certainly could be better. The black one could definitely go.
Yeah.
We don't need that at all. The overall, I'm pleased with these.
Definitely an improvement. And similar to Clippers, like you said, not as good as it could have been if they went back to more of the true, accurate resemblance of what they were paying homage to, but a lot better.
So if I was giving these a grade, I would give them a B.
Just what was going through my head. B.
Give them a B on these. And one more on the NBA, or we shouldn't say NBA, basketball. It's the Olympics. Recently, we've had the Olympics, and I've never been a big fan of the Olympic uniforms, but I was really surprised by just how bland these were. There's nothing wrong with it, except I asked myself, well, the colors are a red, white, and blue for the United States, USA. Where's the red on the jersey?
Yeah.
I see it on the shorts. I'm just looking at the front because that's what everyone's looking at. Did you put a little red in there?
Yeah.
It's boring.
Yeah, fill in the letters or numbers with red, or add a small red border on the inside of the letters. Just to have something would have been a lot better. But this could have been worse.
Yeah, it's very plain uniform.
Yeah, I guess there's a little red on the shorts,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the
it's
jersey,
sitting on the shorts.
yeah, the
but,
jersey,
you know, we're looking primarily at the front of the jersey, and it's not there. And then the blue version is the same way. It's really just blue and white. Now on to Major League Baseball, and there's actually a lot to look at with Major League Baseball. One of the problems going back to last year that we didn't get to was player sleeves. Player sleeves should be the color, the team colors, and limit it to the team colors, or if it's a home uniform, okay, white's all right, but that's what it should be. The player sleeve should be the team colors, or if it's a home uniform, the color white.
Yeah, in this case, dark blue, what's always been used for the Mariners, you can't lose with that. But this is like floral wallpaper or something. I mean, good grief.
And we were told again, this is what was wrong with the game, is you didn't have this before. You didn't have the freedom to express yourself in whatever way you want it. And this is what makes the game better, and especially for the very young demographic, it makes it more fun. This is where we're at right now with uniforms in baseball.
Yeah.
But that's not it. And this bothers me, but there's worse. There's worse, though, and that is Aaron Judge. We're looking at you. Your sleeves, your wristband, your elbow guard.
Yeah, when I saw this, I was just like, how can this happen in a Yankee uniform? And we grew up with the Yankees being the World Series champions, watching them win in class, dressed like class all the time. And now we've come to this point where even with the Yankees, it doesn't matter anymore. And I guess because Aaron Judge is who he is, one of the best players in baseball and the home run king currently, that they gave him a pass on this.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and that's why I suppose he gets away with doing this. But to me, there is no player, however good you are, even on the Yankees, that's big enough,
Yeah.
important enough to wear something like this and ruin the Yankee uniform. What I'm trying to say is there's no player that's bigger than the Yankee uniform.
Shouldn't be.
Even if you're Aaron Judge, to do this. And the question is why? And you can see also that he's worn it on the batting gloves. So this has been all over his uniform. In addition to the sleeve and the elbow guard and the wristband, he's worn this color on his batting gloves and his shin guard.
Yeah.
And why is this?
It's supposed to be for the Statue of Liberty, but, if you want to attribute the Statue of Liberty, do it some other way.
It's a real stretch.
Yeah.
And from what we know, that is what it's for. But it's not the Yankee uniform.
Nope.
I mean, this is desperate for attention, and we say, you're a player like Aaron Judge. You're 6'7", 6'8". You really are a giant on the field, and you're a great baseball player. He hits more home runs when he's healthy than anyone else, and you have to do this?
Yeah, and he's already wearing number 99, so...
Right. Which is too much. It's too high, and again, you're on the Yankees. And we don't need to hear the excuse, well, there's a lot of retired numbers for the Yankees. Yeah, but those are the numbers that are primarily 1 between 20.
Yeah.
And even we can shorten it to 1 to 10. Those are most of the numbers that are retired for the Yankees. You have plenty of options where you do not need to wear 99.
Yeah.
And seek attention by doing this. This is the first player that's ever thought, or was given or pitched the idea that, you should wear the colors of the Statue of Liberty. No one else has ever had to do it in the past, or as far as I know, even if they had wanted to, they would have never had permission to do this for a good reason. So, I hate it on the Yankees.
Same here.
And now we've got some city connects. This is always the difficult part of the baseball season, the Rays. We'll just shoot through some of these fast.
Yeah. This is just big mishmash of all the different Rays elements, primarily going back to their beginning with the design and the colors, but just a mess of design and colors that is hard to read, poor contrast.
And of course, a green belt.
Yeah.
I almost didn't see that there.
Yeah, and I missed that, and I'm surprised he's not wearing a fuchsia sleeve or purple sleeve or whatever to stand out even more, like he usually likes to do and has done.
The Mets.
Yeah, the Mets is a mess.
There's no bright colors, but you're talking about primarily gray here.
Yeah, and you got pinstripes that are oversized. The font is along the lines of the Mets font, but it's not improvement. It's not unique. And
it's forgettable. It's ugly, and not as ugly as the Rays, but it's that dark gray doesn't work for any of the sports.
Yeah, we didn't like the Mets black uniforms growing up, but I'd take those over this any day. Right away.
Oh yeah. The Phillies. The Phillies, for me, is among the worst.
I agree. Colors aren't anything to do with their normal colors. It's a gradient uniform set. Dark pants always look terrible. The font is horrible and hard to read.
Yeah, just to be radical and let's just go crazy, folks. That's what the Phillies did.
Yeah, and it looks like the Mariners. It looks like the Tigers. It is not very unique on top of it.
And the Phillies fall in the category of having some of the very best uniforms in baseball. I would
Yeah.
probably say top 5 among MLB teams. And that's what I want to see them wear.
Yeah.
Their regular home and roads. Not anything like this. I don't want to see any team wear something like this, but especially a team that has such great uniforms. You think of the home pinstripes for the Phillies.
Yeah. Yeah, the creams with the blue hats look great compared to these, and we didn't particularly like those for the reason you just said, because the Phillies' basic home and road is so great. But they're great compared to these. And yeah, I'm kind of just surprised that Bryce Harper didn't push, maybe he did, but they didn't go with a green Philly Fanatic theme.
I'd almost go for something like that.
Yeah.
Because there's a real connection to the actual baseball team. That's
Right.
the mascot.
Right.
But it's City Connect.
Right.
The Cardinals. The Lou.
Yeah. And as you've said before, one of the best uniforms in all of sports, never needing any alternates.
Right. We said what we did just about the Phillies, but even more true of the Cardinals.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're thinking about the best uniforms in sports, Packers in football, number 1 Cardinals in baseball.
Yeah. Total class. I would have just stuck with St. Louis if they were going to do this instead of the Lou. And then the hat is just terrible.
Yes.
The 3 letters across.
I don't care what connection it has to the city. Putting STL on the St. Louis Cardinals uniform is wrong.
Horizontally.
Even for, just the STL, as you said, horizontally on the hat for the Cardinals is wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, the jersey still looks okay. I mean, they have white pants. They have a red jersey. They have the Cardinals on there.
Yeah.
And I say, man, that STL hat clashes with it, and it just doesn't work. It needs to be thrown out.
Yeah. I mean, if they're just going to go with the Lou, then probably just put the Lou on the hat then. But yes, compared to a lot of City Connects, it's a lot closer to the team color and theme. And I'm sure a lot of people would say, well, it's not the point of having an alternate uniform. Fine, but...
It looks terrible.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, in comparison to the other City Connects, it is one of the best.
Yeah.
But I just can't look past and excuse that hat.
Yeah.
I don't care what the significance or history it is. Not on the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
Then the Dodgers. And we're talking about some of the best uniforms in all of baseball. I'd consider the Phillies, the Cardinals, and Dodgers all top 5 uniforms. And I actually liked one of the second edition of the City Connects for the Dodgers once they added in the white pants.
Yeah.
The blue jersey and the white pants. This is a step down for me.
Yeah, the only improvement is the non-color.
Yeah, the 2 shades of blue. Yeah, they don't have a color. It is more of a regular uniform, but the 2 shades of blue I won't like. It just starts making me think of the Titans, and when I start thinking about the Titans, I start getting angry. And then the number on top, on the front, and also on the back. And then it's not even the bottom, the number's cut off on the back of the uniform.
Yeah, and you got 05, and
right,
because you need a placeholder, like a digital display needs to have a placeholder for a 0, but you don't need that here. And what I was just saying a second ago, to lose any game, and sure, it's a 162 game season, but to lose any game of these top level, top class uniforms for these alternates is terrible.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say is the hat for an alternate hat, it's not so bad. I think it's got the LA and the D in there, and interesting design. I'm not saying I love it, but it's okay for me. And then we had the Rickwood game that took place here in the summer between the Giants and the Cardinals. And I'll just bring this up quickly. You had the STL on that hat, and I did think about that. But again, I don't care what the historical significance or the connection is. It's bad. I don't like it on anything.
Yeah, it's too big and wide.
So what you had with the Giants was the San Francisco Sea Lions Negro League team, and then for the Cardinals, this was the St. Louis team that they had. That's actually the comparison between the original uniforms. So the hats are different, as much as I can tell, but the jerseys are quite similar to what they had originally.
Yeah, they did a good job with these from as much as we can tell, and the game on the field looked great. Yeah, so this was a successful uniform situation overall.
Yeah, I'll give them that. It was, all considering, it pretty interesting.
Yeah.
For the uniforms, and updating the hats and doing that, and the lighting was very unique too with the field, and it started off with the late afternoon going into the early evening twilight, and then by the time the game ended, it was a full night game.
Yeah.
What's also worth mentioning here is that they had the Willie Mays patch on the Giants and the Cardinals uniforms. And normally I wouldn't be okay with that, but when it's Willie Mays and they were going to really give the tribute to him for this game anyway, you're talking about arguably the best all-around baseball player ever. You can pick Babe Ruth or you want Willie Mays. So I'm personally okay with that.
Yeah.
Then the All-Star game. There's no other way to say it. It was a uniform disaster. They may have had some fun on the field. We didn't have any fun watching it.
Yeah. This was like going back to the Players' Day style uniforms, Little League style. And about the only positive thing that we could pull out of it was at least the National League is wearing primarily blue and the American League is primarily wearing a shade of red. And that the helmets were glossy again, even though the decal on the front is matte. But it's about all the positive we could bring out of that.
Yes, and we're begging Major League Baseball to bring back the team uniforms.
Yeah.
I can get over the hat. I won't ever like not having the regular hat. But we were complaining when the All-Star game was in Minnesota.
Right.
When they had the Twins-style hats,
right.
But the rest of the uniform was intact.
Yeah.
I would be willing to compromise and go back to that. Something like that. But we need to get the team uniform back. These are just terrible. The American League one, I mean, I'm not going to say I like either of these. I can tolerate the American League one more than the National League because they're supposed to be the road team. Or actually, excuse me, they were the home team. The National League was the road team, and they have this much black.
Yeah.
Could the American League be more white as the home team? And the National League could be more blue than black, but this much black in the uniform.
Yeah.
My problem is especially with this National League one. And this is an example. These are the up-and-coming young players in the league. You have Skeens, you got De La Cruz. The socks.
Yeah. Skeens socks look more appropriate for the American League jersey than the National League jersey. They primarily cream, they have more red in them. Doesn't make sense.
There's like 4 or 5 colors on those socks altogether.
Yeah.
And this has got to stop. It's got to stop, and it is hard on the eyes. And for a lot of reasons, I don't like watching the All-Star game like I used to. But this is at the top. It is just ugly on the eyes. With between Skeens wearing those socks, you look at the belts they're wearing. This is not fun. This is just, to me, unprofessional. And look no further than, okay, De La Cruz, I mean, how many necklaces does he need to wear? And then half, perhaps even more than half of his jersey is unbuttoned.
Yeah, can't even read National League.
I mean, at some point you got to say enough is enough with these.
Yeah, I'm for just going to a pullover uniform for this type of reason. Just don't give the opportunity to separate the name like that of your team. Home or road, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I wouldn't like it, but could we just have the American League wear red and the National League wear blue?
Yeah.
If we're not going to have them wear the actual uniforms.
Yeah.
And that is what always separated the Major League Baseball All-Star game from the other All-Star games, I'm thinking NBA and NFL, is that they wore the actual uniforms, and there was nothing better than seeing the players line up and then you waiting to see your team's player, the representative, the coach, on the field lining up representing your team, and you could easily identify it.
Yeah.
But as so many have said during the All-Star break, how many of these players are identifiable outside of the regular uniform? And what I always kept hearing were really only 2 players. Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani were probably the only 2. And then if you're going to pick a third, it would probably be Bryce Harper, but he didn't even play in the game. He was hurt. So you really only have 2 players, and that's it for Major League Baseball. It's not like being in the 90s for us where you would say, okay, well, that's Barry Bonds, and that's Mark McGwire, Ken Griffey Jr., Randy Johnson, Roger Clemens, Cal Ripken Jr., I could keep going on, Mike Piazza.
Yep.
Tony Gwynn. I mean, these were players that you would easily recognize.
Yeah, now it's flip-flopped to where the Home Run Derby is where we see the uniforms used for each team instead of the game itself, and it used to be the reverse. You have more of a uniform like this used in the All-Star game for the Home Run Derby.
And I'm pleased to hear, and I hope these are true, that there were rumors that there are Major League Baseball Manfred are seriously considering bringing back the regular uniforms.
Yeah.
And it can't happen fast enough.
Yeah.
And then we'll finish off with the Giants tribute to Willie Mays. They had a game where every single player wore 24. Usually I would say no to this. But again, when you have one of the greatest players of all time, and he lived up into his 90s, it was a cool thing seeing the Giants do it. And knowing, too, that Willie Mays was still very, into his early 90s. He was always there. He was around the team, in the clubhouse. He was there for all the gatherings, all the reunions that the Giants had. It wasn't like a player who just retired and disappeared.
Yeah.
Even going back to the days the Giants were in New York, he played in New York and San Francisco. So they had the patch, and then they had, for this one game, the 24 on the back of the uniforms.
Yeah.
So it was a cool tribute to Willie Mays.